All right, now for part three of the system of least prompts. Well, there are some important things to remember when using the system of least prompts. One of those is that you should have 2 to 3 levels of prompting in each student's individualized prompting hierarchy. And I recommend three. I recommend three because it gives that student multiple opportunities, at least one additional opportunity to respond independently at a lower prompting level than if you only have two. So, an example of a prompting hierarchy that's individualized might be a verbal prompt, and then a model, and then a physical prompt. Now, as a reminder, the prompting levels can vary. They can vary for discrete skills, and those are one-step skills from trial to trial. A student might be able to do it, perform a skill with a model this trial, and then the next trial they are able to do it with just a verbal prompt, and perhaps there's something is going on that we're not aware of, and then they might need a visual like a gesture, and then go back to a verbal prompt. So that prompting level can vary from trial to trial. Or in a chain skill, it can vary from step to step. So if I'm washing my hands, I might be able to independently turn on the water, but I might need a gesture to get the soap. So those between those two steps, the prompting level varied, right? And then maybe I'm able to wash my hands together with a model, and I only need a gesture paired with a verbal prompt to turn the water off. So again, those prompting levels can vary from trial to trial and from step to step. The wait time, the response interval stays the same with each of the prompting levels. So between, if I am giving my verbal prompt, after my verbal prompt, or excuse me, let me go back. After I give my task direction, I'm going to give the same response interval between giving the first level of prompt, which might be a verbal prompt, and the second level of prompting, which might be a model. So your response interval stays the same for all prompting levels. Now, again, just as a reminder that the response interval is different than the time it takes to complete a step or a skill. The response interval is the time between the task direction, and it's the wait time you give a student to respond before you give a prompt. That's what the response interval is, just as a reminder. Um, but there are going to be times, especially with the students that we work with, where you are going to pair a verbal prompt with some other type of prompt. So you might pair a verbal prompt with a model, or you might pair a verbal prompt with a gesture, especially when a student is just learning verbal language. Because not only do you want to show them, in the case of a model, what the expectation or the behavior is, but you want to teach them the language that aligns with or is paired with that, again, say, for instance, that physical behavior or whatever the model behavior you're modeling. You also want to make sure that whenever possible, if you see a student is about to make a mistake, I want you to interrupt that error. You want to interrupt the error rather than allowing the student to make an error. So we don't wait on them to make an error to correct them. If we can, we want to interrupt that error. And we'll see a few examples of that in just a second. Again, because we want errorless learning wherever possible. So if you can interrupt or prevent a student from making an error and then show them the correct response and then have them engage in the correct response or behavior, that's what we want. So let's look at what error interruption might look like. So in this case, what we want the student to do is to match a picture of a cat to the word cat. So matching a picture of a cat to the word cat. The student attempts to match the picture of a cat to the word dog. What the teacher does as the error interruption is that the teacher gently blocks the student's hand from matching the picture of a cat to the word dog, and then immediately provides the next level of prompting. And so in this case, it's the controlling prompt, which would be a gesture and a verbal prompt. And the teacher says, "This is the word cat," while pointing towards the word. And then the student correctly matches the picture of the cat to the word cat, and the teacher immediately provides positive reinforcement. All right, let's look at another example. In this case, the task we want the student to engage in or to perform is pressing the yes button on an AAC device to answer a question. And so what ends up happening is the student makes an error. They attempt to press the no button. What the teacher does to interrupt that error is the teacher places her hand over the no button to prevent the error and then provides the next level prompt, which in this case is physically guiding the student's hand to the yes button. And as a result, the student correctly answers the question by pressing by pressing yes, and the teacher immediately reinforces that correct response. All right, now our last example of error interruption. And in this case, the teacher wants the student to sort red blocks into a red tub. The student attempts to place a red block in the blue tub. And so the teacher's error interruption is that the teacher pulls the blue tub back to block the student and provides that next level of prompt, which is gesturing to the red tub. And then the student places the red block in the red tub, and the teacher immediately provides reinforcement. So again, whenever possible, we want to engage in error interruption because we are shooting for errorless learning. All right, now we looked at the basic steps in the system of least prompts procedures, but what we're going to go over now, and this is important for you to know because you're going to watch some videos in a minute. You're going to watch, or excuse me, in class, you're going to watch them not only with a partner, but then we're going to watch them as class as a whole, and you're going to look for these steps. And these are the more detailed steps for a complete instructional trial. So starting with the attentional cue and moving through all of the steps of an individualized prompting hierarchy. So 3 levels is what we're going to look at. And this is a great tool for you to keep because when you're first using this, if this is new to you, it is really nice to have it as a guideline. It's a task analysis is what it is. And so it's easy to look and it's beneficial to look at that again, for example, when you are creating your videos. So let's look at the steps in an instructional trial for using the system of least prompts. All right, the first thing you're going to do is get the student's attention. Again, that's the attentional cue. Then you're going to give your task direction. And after that, you're going to wait your response interval to give the student the opportunity to respond independently. That's always what we're going to do, is to use that response interval to give the student the opportunity to respond independently. If the student responds correctly, we're going to give positive reinforcement. If, however, the student does not respond or makes a mistake, makes an error, we're going to give the first and least intrusive prompt in their prompting hierarchy. And for us right now, it's going to be a verbal prompt. And then we're going to wait a set number of seconds for a response. So after each prompting level, we use our response interval because we want the student to have the opportunity to respond before we do anything. If the student responds after that first level in the prompting hierarchy, you're going to give positive reinforcement. But if they don't respond or they make an error, you're going to give the second least intrusive prompt in the hierarchy. And for this example, we're going to say a model. And then again, you're going to provide that wait time or that response interval. So now we have gone through 2 levels of the student's prompting hierarchy. If after you give the second level prompt, the student responds correctly, you're going to provide positive reinforcement. However, if they do not respond or make an error, you're going to continue and give the next least intrusive prompt in their hierarchy until the student responds correctly. And this is going to be the controlling prompt right here because we're in level 3 now of a prompting hierarchy. So just as a reminder, you're going to want to make sure that in the initial stages of teaching that you are reinforcing a student's correct responses after each trial for a discrete skill, but also after each each step in a task analysis of a chain task in the beginning, and then you're going to fade all that off over time. But in the beginning, for each step, we really want to reinforce them and let them know they're doing a great job. All right, and again, the that last step in your I mean, in your prompting hierarchy should be the controlling prompt. Again, just a reminder that this is a great resource that is on Canvas for you to use if you need it, if you are new to the system of least prompts. If you're new to the system of least prompts, this is a great graphic for you to follow and to use for your upcoming project. All right, just to let you know what we're going to be doing in class. In class, you are going to be put in breakout groups. And in your breakout groups, you're going to do two things, and you get to decide which one you want to do first. You're going to watch a video, and what you're going to do is look for evidence of system of least prompts procedures for the steps. And here is a link to that video. It's like maybe a minute and 11 seconds. And so I encourage you to watch that now. Watch it before class. It'll take you just a minute and 11 seconds to watch, but it'll kind of help you prepare for that. And then after that, or first, whichever order you decide to do it, we want you to give implementation of the system of least prompts a shot. Here's a couple of examples of skills you might want to teach, but you can pick whichever one you want. Because we are doing this virtually, though, you're not going to be able to give your partner a physical prompt. So what you're going to have to do is to talk through that. So say something like, now, because you didn't respond, I would give you a physical prompt at the wrist. And then have the student say, and now I respond independently. So you're going to have to talk through it because you're not in person. Let's see. You can choose either a discrete or a chain skill, but if you use a chain skill, I suggest that you only focus on one step. Just do one step, okay? And then there's a handout on Canvas that is the steps in the system of least prompts procedures, and it'll tell you that it's the in-class activity. And this is what it looks like. So as you are watching the video with your partner and you can each talk through it, you just want to write down what your evidence was. So did the teacher provide wait time? How many seconds did she provide for that response interval? Did the student respond correctly? You can just say yes. You don't have to write down necessarily, if you don't want to, how they responded. If they did not respond or made an error, what was the response? So you're going to use this just to track the evidence that you see in the videos. And this is the video. It is on number recognition, and it's me working with a doc student. So you'll see that it's adults, not students. Again, you're going to use this form for that. And now I just wanted to do a quick check-in to see how you're doing. How are you feeling about the system of least prompts? If you are doing great, wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that. If you're like, oh man, I'm not sure, make sure, or if you're not completely lost, make sure that you again touch base with me and don't feel like you only have to bring questions to class. We have office hours after class, so feel free to just stay on Zoom and I'll be there. I'm happy to answer any of your questions. Feel free to schedule an independent Zoom meeting with me so I can go over things with you one-on-one or in a small group if you'd like. I'm happy to meet with you in the evening if you need to meet on the weekend because I know that most of you are working during the day. I am happy to meet with you on the weekend provided my schedule allows. So again, I'm super flexible. My ultimate goal is for you to understand. All right. So that is the end of, I think it's video 3, and I'll see you in the next one.